Hello, it's Grandma again. Are you ready for Grandma's story time? I've got my story bag here. You know the bag. It's the bag with purple circles and golden elephants and blue circles with golden elephants and red circles. And you know who lives in here, don't you? Come out, Peter. Oh, here he comes. Oh, you're happy to be back again? Oh, yes. You love stories, don't you? Do you remember what story we're reading? Oh, get the book out. Yes, here it is. It's called The Wishing Chair Again by Enid Blyton. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're up to chapter 5. Goodness me. Shall I read it now? Do you remember what's happened? They're looking for Mr. Spells. Okay, bye-bye. Peter can go in his bag. I've got the book and I've got my glasses. Put on your glasses, Grandma. Let's begin. Oh, where's the bookmark? Here it is. Chapter 5. Off to Mr. Spells of Wizard Cottage. Mollie and Peter could certainly do no more that day because their mother was already wondering why they hadn't been in to tea. They heard her calling as they read Chinky's note, saying he had gone to look for them. It's a pity Chinky didn't wait for us, said Peter. We could have sent him to Mr. Spells to keep guard on the chair. Come on, Mollie, we have to go in. We've hardly seen Mother all day. Their mother didn't know anything about the wishing chair, of course, because the children kept it a secret. If we tell anyone, the grown-ups will come and take our precious chair and put it in a museum or something, said Peter. I couldn't bear to think of the wishing chair growing its wings in a museum and not being able to get out of a glass case. So they hadn't said a word to anyone. Now they ran indoors and offered to help their mother to shell the peas. They sat and wondered where Chinky was. They felt very sleepy, and Mollie suddenly gave an enormous yawn. You look very tired, Mollie, said Mother, looking at her pale face. Didn't you sleep well last night? Well, I didn't sleep a lot, said Mollie truthfully, remembering the long flight in the wishing chair and the strange bus ride afterwards. I think you had better both get off early to bed, said Mother. I'll bring you your suppers up to you in bed for a treat. Raspberries and cream, and bread and butter. Would you like that? In the ordinary way, the children would have said no thank you to any idea of going to bed early. But they really were so sleepy that they both yawned together and said, yes, that sounded fine. Thank you, Mother. So upstairs they went and fell asleep immediately after the raspberries and cream. Mother was really very surprised when she peeped in to see them. Poor children. I expect all the excitement of coming home from school has tired them out, she said. I'll make them up sandwiches tomorrow and send them out for a picnic. They woke up early the next morning and their first thought was about the wishing chair. Let's go down and see Chinky, said Mollie. We've got time before breakfast. So they dressed quickly and ran down to their playroom. But no Chinky was there, and no note either. He hadn't been back then. Wherever could he be? Oh dear. First the wishing chair, and now Chinky, said Mollie. What's happened to him? I think we'd better go and ask that elf if he's seen him. "We shan't have time before breakfast," said Peter. "We'll come down as soon as we've done any jobs that Mother wants us to do." They were both delighted when Mother suggested they should take their lunch with them and go out for a day's picnicking. Why, that would be just right. They could go and hunt out the elf and find Chinky and perhaps go to Mr. Spurl's with him. Splendid! So they eagerly took the packets of sandwiches and cake and chocolate that Mother had made for them, and Peter put them into a little satchel to carry, and off they went. They peeped into their playroom just to make sure that Chinky hadn't come back. No, he hadn't. "Better leave a note for him then," said Peter. "What have you said?" asked Mollie, looking over his shoulder. "I've said, 'Why didn't you wait for us, silly? Now we have to go and look for you while you're still looking for us.'" Mollie laughed. "Oh dear, this really is getting ridiculous. Come on, let's go to the tree house and see if the elf is in." So off they went, down the garden, through the hedge, across the field, to where the dark patch of grass was, the fairy ring. They sat down in the middle of it, and Mollie felt about for the button to press. She found something that felt like a little knob of earth, and she pushed it. Yes, it was the right button. Down they went, not nearly as fast as the day before, because Mollie didn't press the button so hard. Then along the passage, past the queer bright little doors, and up the spiral stairway. They knocked on the door. "It's us, Mollie and Peter. Can we come in?" The door flew open, and there stood the elf. He looked very pleased.
"Well, this is really friendly of you. Do come in."
"We've come to ask you something," said Mollie. "Have you seen Chinky?"
"Oh, yes. He came to see me yesterday, after I'd said goodbye to you, and I told him all that you told me. And off he went to find Polly Polish and get the latest news,"
said the elf. "Well, he hasn't come back yet," said Mollie. "Where do you suppose he is?"
"Gone to see his mother, perhaps?"
said the elf.
"I really don't know. It's not much good looking for him, really, you know. He might be anywhere."
"Yes, that's true," said Peter. "Well, what shall we do, Mollie? Try and find Mr. Spurl's of Wizard Cottage by ourselves?"
"Oh, I know where he lives,"
said the elf.
"He's quite a nice fellow. I'll tell you the way. You want to take the bus through the tall hill and then take the boat to the mill. Not far off, on the top of the hill, you'll see a large cottage in the shape of a castle. Only you can't call it a castle, because it's not big enough. Mr. Spurl's lives there."
"Oh, thank you," said Peter, and off they went to catch the bus. It was one like the one they had caught the other night, but it had a different driver, and it was not nearly so crowded. In fact, there would have been plenty of room inside for Peter and Mollie if they hadn't noticed that one of the passengers happened to be Mr. Sleep Alone, Chinky's strange and bad-tempered cousin. "We'd better travel with the driver on the outside seat again," said Peter. "Sleep Alone might recognise us and lose his temper again." The bus travelled fast down the lane, going round the corners in hair-raising style. "Do you like going around corners on two wheels?" Peter asked the driver, clutching at Mollie to prevent her from falling off.
"Well, it saves wear and tear on the tyres,"
said the driver. The bus suddenly ran straight at a very steep hill and disappeared into a black hole, which proved to be a long and bumpy tunnel. It came out again and stopped dead beside a little blue river, its front wheels almost touching the water.
"I always do that to give the passengers a fright,"
said the driver.
Must give them their money's worth.
The children were really glad to get out. They looked for a boat and saw plenty cruising about on the water, all by themselves. "Look at that," said Peter. "They must go by magic or something." One little yellow boat sailed over to them and rocked gently beside them. They got into it. The boat didn't move.
"Tell it where to go, silly,"
called out the bus driver, who was watching them with great interest. "To the mill," said Peter, and immediately the boat shot off down the stream, doing little zigzags now and again in a very light-hearted manner. It wasn't long before they came to an old mill. Its big water wheel made a loud noise. Behind it was a hill, and on top of that was what looked like a small castle. "That's where Mr. Spells lives," said Peter. "Come on, out we get and up the hill we go." So up the hill they went and came at last to a curious castle-like house. But when they got near, they heard shouts and thumps and yells, and they stopped in alarm. "Whatever's going on?" said Mollie. "Is someone quarrelling?" The children tiptoed into the house and peeped in at one of the windows, the one where the noise seemed to be coming from. They saw a peculiar sight. Chinky and a nasty-looking little goblin seemed to be playing musical chairs. The children saw the 6 chairs that they had seen the day before in Mr. Polish's shop, and first Chinky would dart at one and look carefully at it and try to pull it away, and then the goblin would, and then Mr. Spells, who looked like a very grand, kind enchanter, would pull the chairs away from each and smack them, both the goblin and Chinky, with his stick. Roars and bellows came from the goblin and howls from Chinky. Oh dear, whatever was happening? Chinky must have found out that the chairs had gone to Mr. Spells and gone to get our own chair, said Peter. And the goblin must have gone to get it at the same time. Can you see the blue handkerchief we tied on our chair, Mollie? No, it's gone. Somebody took it off, said Mollie. I believe I can see it sticking out of Chinky's pocket. I expect he guessed that we put it on there, and he took the hanky off just in case the goblin or Mr. Spells guessed there was something special about that chair.
Sir,
cried Chinky suddenly, turning to Mr. Spells.
I tell you once more, I'm only here to fetch back one of these chairs, a wishing chair, which belongs to me and my friends. This goblin stole it from us, and now he's come to get it back again from you. He'll sell it again and steal it. He's a bad fellow.
Smack! The goblin thumped Chinky hard, and he yelled, and Mr. Spells roared like a lion.
I don't believe either of you. You're a couple of rogues. These are my chairs, all of them, and I don't believe any of them is a wishing chair. Wishing chairs have wings, and not one of these has.
But I tell you,
began Chinky, and then stopped as the enchanter struck him lightly with his wand, and then struck the goblin too. Chinky sank down into a deep sleep, and so did the goblin.
Now I shall have some peace at last,
said Mr. Spells.
And I'll find out which chair is the wishing chair, if these fellows are speaking the truth.
He went out of the room, and the children heard him stirring something somewhere. He was probably making a find-out spell. Come on, let's get him into the room and drag Chinky out whilst he's gone, said Peter. We simply must rescue him. So they crept in through the window and bent over Chinky. And just at that very moment, they felt a strong draught blowing around them. They looked at each of the chairs. Yes! One of them had grown wings and was flapping them about, making a wind. Hooray! Now they could fly off in the wishing chair and cram Chinky in with them, even fast asleep. Quick, oh quick, Mr. Spells is coming back, said Peter. Help me, Chinky. Quick, Mollie, quick. They looked at each of the chairs. Yes, one of them had grown wings and was flapping them, making quite a wind. Hooray! Now they could fly off in the wishing chair and cram Chinky in with them, fast asleep. Quick, oh quick, Mr. Spells is coming back, said Peter. Help me with Chinky. Quick, Mollie, quick. Look, they're pulling sleepy Chinky up into the chair with them. That's the end of the chapter. Do you think they'll get to fly away before Mr. Spells comes back? Come back tomorrow and we'll find out. Bye-bye.